Hey everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing the SWAG Off-Road version 4.0 Portaband table. Now what this will enable you to do is create a stationary bandsaw out of your Portaband, and you can do that without any modifications to the saw itself. What it will do is attach on here with a thumb screw, and it keeps it very secure, it's not going to fall off, and it's very stable. So you can use two hands to work with whatever material you're working on, and you don't have to use your hands to hold on to the Portaband itself. I'm going to show you what comes in the box and how easy this is to put together, as well as some clips of the Portaband in action. So I'm actually going to be using this with the M18 fuel bandsaw, which technically is not compatible with this table straight out of the box. But with some very simple modifications, you can make it work. And I'm going to upload a separate video showing you how to modify this table, like I did, to work with the M18 fuel bandsaw. So stay tuned and watch this table in action. Okay, here is the kit itself. It comes with the tabletop, two legs, as well as all the nuts and bolts needed to put everything together. And then they have this plastic thumb wheel. And this is what will actually attach the bandsaw to the tabletop itself. So now I'm going to show you how easy this is to put together. The first step is going to be to take the tabletop itself and just flip it over so it's laying face down. Then you're going to take one of the supplied legs that has the little feet on the bottom, and you want the feet facing inward. You do not want them facing outward. You'll place that on the inside lip of the tabletop itself. The legs are not bolted from the outside, they're going to be bolted from the inside. So you're going to take one of the supplied bolts and you're going to stick that through the hole on the side of the tabletop, and that will go through the hole corresponding on the leg itself. Then you'll take one of the supplied nuts and you'll just hand tighten that into place. And we'll repeat this in this other corner. Take another bolt, slide that through, and then we'll take another nut and we'll just hand tighten that. Now these are nylon locking nuts, so you're not going to be able to spin them on very far. It really will take a lot of pressure to spin these on, but that will also prevent them from loosening up. So now that I have those in place, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these up with a ratchet and then a wrench to hold the nut. Now, these are an internal hex bolt, so the size that you're going to need is 3/16 internal hex. If you have a hex key or you have a hex socket, that's what you're going to need to tighten these up. So next, I'm just going to place a 1/2 inch wrench on that actual nut itself, and then we're going to take the ratchet and then just tighten this up. Okay, that side's tight. Now I'm going to do the other side. Okay, now that everything's tight, we're going to see if the table will actually stand up on its own and not flex. If it does, well, nope, there's actually no wiggle. So what we have done is basically made our table. It is very sturdy, and if you have any flex at all, like let's say it will rock back and forth, what you need to do is just loosen these bolts up, make sure it's sitting flat, and then tighten them up one by one, because there is just a little bit of play in the holes. So these will move around slightly. You can actually adjust them just, slightly to make sure your table's nice and level. But now our table is complete. And if you have one of the approved bandsaws, they will go right on here, and then you'll take the little thumb wheel on the bottom to tighten it in place. The first step you need to do is move the adjustable shoe all the way out. Next, we're going to pick up the bandsaw and take the blade and insert it through the slot in the center of the table. Now this little tab on the back of the table itself is going to line up with the hole, which is a vent port on the saw itself. And that tab is going to insert into there. So you insert the tab inside of the vent port hole, and now all the weight of the saw is resting on the table. Now that it's sitting upright, really the only thing that's going to hold it on is this little red thumb wheel, and that feeds in between the adjustable shoe, the opening for the blade. In the center of that is going to be the hole that this is going to thread into the bottom of the table. So we're just going to line it up with that hole, and then press up, and then just twist it clockwise, and it's going to thread right into that hole. And once we get it flush with the top of the table, we just stop so it doesn't pop up above the surface of the table, and it is installed. Pop a battery on the bandsaw itself, or if you're using a corded model, just plug it in, take it off of safety, and then pull the trigger, and it'll work fine. So I'm going to do some testing now to show you how good it cuts. It does sit upright, basically exactly 90 degrees, and I've already done a couple cuts with this, and I'm very happy with the performance. Okay, in order to use a Portaband in a stand form like this, you're going to need something to clamp the trigger. There is no automatic on-off switch with a Portaband, so they recommend that you use a spring type clamp like this. I don't particularly like these, so I'm going to be using an Irwin Quick Grip that you basically, it'll just auto ratchet shut, and then you can pull this little release tab to release it. So I'm going to put that on the trigger itself right after I select what speed mode I want. So I'm going to go down to 5, which is the maximum speed on this. I'm going to turn it to unlock, and now if I push in on the trigger, the bandsaw is going to cut on. So what we're going to do is just basically clamp that trigger shut. The bandsaw is going to be running, and now we're going to try to cut a few different items. So I'm going to place this on the trigger itself, clamp it down, and now the bandsaw is running. So I'm going to take a piece of steel square tubing, and I'm going to just go ahead and cut it in half with this. And there you go. After you make your cut, you just want to release that trigger. It instantly cuts off. But it's not going to just turn off with like an on-off switch. If you have a corded model, you will be able to use an on-off foot pedal switch. But with these cordless ones, you have to clamp the actual trigger itself. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut a piece of angle iron. So I'm going to take that quick grip again, clamp the trigger, and then it'll turn it on. Now one thing I want to point out is that with a Milwaukee deep cut bandsaw, the throat depth is 5 inches by 5 inches. But when you install the SWAG off-road table onto this, it's actually going to make that throat depth 5 inches by 4 3/4. Because the bandsaw table itself is installed in between the throat and the adjustable shoe, you're taking up just a slight amount of that space in order to mount it. A really nice feature that they have built into the tabletop itself are 2 sliding miter gauge tracks, one on the right and one on the left, and these are recessed into the tabletop itself. Because they're recessed, if you don't use a sliding miter gauge, it's not going to affect you at all because the material is going to slide right over top of these and it's not going to catch on anything. But if you want a real precise cut, either straight or at an angle, if you use that sliding miter gauge, you're going to be able to do that. And this track is machined specifically for the width of a standard sliding miter gauge. So now you've seen the SWAG Off-Road version 4.0 Portaband table for yourself. These are 100% made and assembled in the USA, and what it will really enable you to do is have 2 tools for the price of 1. So you can buy a portable bandsaw and then with the help of this table have a stationary bandsaw also without buying that separate tool. It is very easy to store when it's not in use because of its compact size, and you can really keep it anywhere in your garage or in your truck, and with these little tabs on the bottom, if you want to mount it somewhere permanently, you can also do that. If you like this video, please click like. If you like my channel, please click subscribe, and thanks for watching.